Hello, and welcome to the Vicars Watch Dibley, the podcast where three priests link our stories with those of the Reverend Geraldine Granger and other TV vicars. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Ruthie. You may have already guessed from our introduction, but Cate isn't here today because she's feeling really poorly. So we've decided to do something a little different, which we hope you enjoy. Hi, Jenny.
Hey!
How's it going?
Oh, that was a really girly hey. Don't usually do that, but hey! Oh my gosh.
We're doing something a bit different this morning, aren't we? Because
Yes.
poor Cate is feeling really poorly, and so we're just giving her some time off. So we thought we'd do something a little bit different today. So this will be a mini episode, and we're really hoping that we manage to edit it and get it uploaded so you can listen to it tomorrow. We're just showing how last minute we are today. But we thought we'd do a series of like 3 mini episodes where one of us interviews another person to just talk about our journey of becoming ordained and how that's gone as a process for us, because we know quite a few of you guys who are listening are going through that journey and working out whether you might be called to be a priest or what it is you might be doing with your life. And so we thought we'd just give a little insight to each of us. So today we're starting with the best, of course. We're starting with Jenny.
Goodness. That's too much hype for me to handle, man.
You can handle the hype. You can always handle the hype. So we're going to go through a few kind of questions and just ask Jenny her story, and maybe it'll resonate with you, maybe it won't, but it should just be a little mini ep that's a little insight into the wonderful Jennifer. I was about to say Ingram. It's not Ingram anymore.
Changed.
Jennifer Bland.
I know, from Ingram to Bland.
So let's go right back to the beginning to baby Jenny.
Oh,
baby, I'm sure you're a very cute baby. I don't think I've ever seen any baby
I think I
pictures
was.
of you.
I looked like a duck with really curly hair. That's what I looked like. I looked like a duck with really curly hair. I wasn't necessarily yellow or fluffy, but yeah. Oh, fluffy on top, I suppose. But yeah,
it was more the beak I was thinking about.
I didn't have a developed beak, but I just had. I mean, old babies are cute, aren't they? But from the pictures that I have seen. Oh, really?
Some of them aren't. I mean, mine was, but.
Okay, 100%. I'm getting a flashback to that Friends episode with ugly baby judges you. But I don't know, if a baby's ugly, I don't think they can be. Although I do have someone close to me in my life is absolutely sure that all newborns look like baby frogs, but I think that's a bit harsh. So,
I mean, when they first come out, they're not good looking at all, but they develop their cuteness. Anyway, cute baby Jenny.
Cute baby Jenny, rolling around in the world. Well, it's funny to start there, really, because like when I was in school recently and talking about faith journey and like, when did you become a Christian and all that kind of lovely stuff. And I always begin at the very beginning because I was baptised when I was an infant in the month of February. And I need to find out the date, actually. I want to celebrate my baptism birthday this year, but yeah. Just another excuse for cake and candles, but hey. But yeah, I really have a connection to thinking about, actually, that is where my faith journey began. And I think there's something really precious about being baptised, even as an infant. Obviously, I didn't get to choose. My parents chose for me. But yeah, I would always count that as like the beginning of the journey, really.
Absolutely. And that's what's in the words that we say.
Absolutely.
That actually, this is the beginning of the journey for you.
Yeah.
And we hope you'll continue on this journey. Oh, exciting.
Yeah,
so did you start off going to church as a baby, or was that not a thing for you and your family?
Yeah, so for my family, my parents are divorced now, and they divorced when I was quite young, but my dad is actually a vicar, although he's recently retired. So when I was a baby, my dad was a vicar, so he actually was the one that baptised me. And have an older sister as well. And so I started out my early life going to church, attending church. And my mum's always been religious. But when they kind of divorced, we moved away and we spent time actually living in a religious community. So we grew up for a year or so in Little Gidding, which some may have heard of because it's not famous, but it's kind of well known in the retreat kind of world, and the Christian community world. So we lived there for a little bit, and before long we moved to Polbrook, which is a little village, and attended the church there on and off, but not really, if I'm honest. Like I remember going with school a lot, but I hated it because it was always so cold and it smelt strange. I'm not sure about you, but I remember those. That for me is my childhood memory of church. Smells a bit weird and it's flipping cold.
Gosh.
I remember the vicar though. He used to come in and do assemblies, and I remember listening but not really taking it in. Like I remember him, but I don't remember anything he said, which does make me think, actually, isn't it funny that that's the stuff that sticks, really, is sometimes who you are and how you present rather than what you actually say. But that's kind of where I was between the ages of like 3 and 10, I would say. So occasionally going to church, but didn't really impact me at all. We didn't really do much talking about God at home either, so that wasn't really on the cards. But we started going back to church when we moved again. We moved to a market town called Oundle, the historic market town of Oundle, and that's when I really started to go to church with my family. And to be honest, it might have been because there was a bit of it helps if you go to church, if you're applying for a school that requires you to have religious belief. Yeah. But I remember enjoying the children's group. Again, it was cold and I was a bit scared of everyone. I was actually quite shy as a girl. Aww. As a young girl, I wasn't. I was apparently really confident. I used to go up to everybody in the park and be like, "Hi, I'm Jenny and this is my sister. Like, play with us." But when I got to about 10, 11, 12, 13, I was quite shy. And I didn't like going away from my mum, and I'd always have to leave the church service to go upstairs with the children. I always remember feeling like, oh no. But I did enjoy it, and I ended up getting confirmed when I was about 13 as well. Plugged into church a bit more. And then after that happened, started to move away again from church a bit. I guess sleeping in on a Sunday morning was more important than attending church, and kind of was in a bit of a lull, really, for a few years, which I know is quite a familiar story for many. Yeah.
So when did that lull kind of stop? When did faith kind of get back into the picture for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. So when I was about 13, well, probably 14, 15, my friend, one of my best friends, who's still a best friend to this day, Amy, she said to me, "Do you want to come and spend half term with me? I'm going on this really cool thing. It is Christian, but it's called the Letton Hall House Party." And I was like, "What? Yeah. House party? Yeah, definitely want to be a part of that." So we went away for half term. I think it was in February. There's like one every February and October. And we went in February and I was like, oh my gosh. So it was it's run by a kind of, they're called CROPS, so Christian Options for Peterborough Schools. They take away a whole bunch, maybe like 50, like teenagers basically, away for a week. There's worship, there's prayer, but there's also like go-karting and like food. There's dressing up nights and games. And it's just a really great space to be. And the first time I went, I was like, I love all of this stuff, but man, those Christians are weird. And then the second time I went, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. And I actually feel really happy here. There is something special about these people. Yeah. And then the third time I went, so it took a little bit of a while for me. The third time I went, I was like, oh my goodness, I love it here. There's something really special about this people. And okay, God, if you're real, like, I want to know about it. Yeah, like, I kind of, I said this to the kids I was speaking to the other day, I kind of almost challenged God. I was like, I dare you, God, if you are real, come and show me who you are. And like the first time I really sincerely prayed that and wanted it and dared and challenged in my like, when I think about it now, I was like, who did I think I was? But God used that to be like, okay, here I am then. And just in that moment on my own in the back of this hall, just feeling like such peace and love and like healing of the stuff that was really challenging me at the time, I suppose. Like feeling that for the first time, being like, oh my gosh, God, you're real. Oh my goodness, you're actually real. And that was the start of really everything that changed. What's interesting as well is when I came home from that particular week away, my mum said she knew that something had happened. She didn't tell me for years and years. She obviously didn't think it was important enough to. Yeah, but she said I came home and my anger had gone. I was probably obviously quite an angry teenager for her to say that at times. I mean, we all are really, aren't we, at some point? But she said she knew something had changed because I was more helpful, I was more polite, I was more like, and yeah, this kind of anger had left, which was amazing. Couldn't see it in myself, but obviously God knew what God was doing.
Yeah. And I think what you've just said about you shouldn't challenge God, I think you should sometimes. I think definitely people in the Bible do. And just say, true. Come on, God, if you're real, do this.
Yeah.
And it's not like you must do this exact thing here, otherwise I won't believe in you. But, just saying, God, I'd like to know what you're about, and so show
me who you are. Yeah, to be fair, that's true. Yeah, no, it's true. I do encourage other people to do that, actually, as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
So don't beat yourself up, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks, babe. It was the best
back.
challenge ever. I've made in my life. So.
Oh, so you came back and you were less angry and
less full of rage.
And did life change for you after that, or what kind of things did you start doing then?
Yeah, so I went back to church and I started going to a Baptist church actually for about a year. This is about 15, 16 now. And I wondered if that was something for me. We went to Soul Survivor. If anyone listening has heard of that. So again, it's like a kind of a youth camp for the more charismatic evangelical wing of the church. And I did enjoy it. And I like the people. I like the church. But there was something about the way I'd been brought up in worship that called me back. So I started to go back to my local Anglican church, like on my own, like walking into town and going to church there, and fell in with a group of great people in the youth group there. So, started going to church. I helped to set up a CU at my school. So to get other Christians together.
What does CU stand for?
CU is Christian Union. Wahey! So we used to get like speakers to come in, or we used to just talk about what it was, what it meant to have faith, and, to be in that stage of our lives. And then, I just really enjoyed, I guess, my RE lessons. Like, I remember I was so proud about being a Christian. I had this badge, and the badge represented a particular club that I went to, which symbolised being a Christian and going to the club, if that makes sense. So it sounds really cringe, doesn't it? But I was just so proud, and I was like, wow, this is who I am. Like, my identity properly clicked into being a Christian then. And I guess at the end of school, that's what took me to doing theology. I went to the University of Nottingham to do theology because people said, if you don't know what to do, then just do something you love. And I was like, well, I want to study more about God. I want to have the reason, the drive, I want to be forced to be doing that. I don't want to leave it behind or escape it. So that's what happened, I guess, being a bit of an older teenager. And that was the next step, really.
And so how did you choose which university you wanted to go to?
Well, I really wanted to go to Durham because my boyfriend at the time was there. Oh. So, I applied to go to Durham and just had this wonderful idea of being able to go there and, be with him. When that didn't happen, I was like, oh no. But actually looking back, it was a really good thing because... for lots of reasons, but also because when I went to Nottingham, the way I chose was I looked around Durham, and I would never have got the grades for Durham anyway, bless me. But but I also looked at Nottingham. I looked at Exeter and Bristol. I think I remember with my mum going on these massive car journeys. And when I got to Nottingham, right, it was so cool. The theology professor at the time was talking, who's Karen Kilby, who is a bit of quite a name really in theology. And she's in Durham University. She's at Durham University now. But she spoke at the front of the room and said, sometimes I just sit in a dark room and think about what it is that I don't actually understand. And I was like, I was like, this woman, there's nothing that she doesn't understand. She's amazing. And she went on to be a tutor for like liberation theology, feminist theology. And I just clicked. You know, when you have that feeling, I went there and I was like, this is the place for me to be. Yeah, I really want to be here.
Yeah. So at this point, you weren't going to do theology because you thought, oh, I want to be a vicar. It was just you really enjoyed it.
No way did I want to be a vicar. There was nothing cool about that. No way. Also, at that stage of my life, I wasn't aware that female vicars were a thing. I'd never seen or been ministered to. Actually, my sister reminded me, we do actually have a really close, not really close, but fairly close family friend who's a female vicar. But I never associated her with being a vicar because we never saw her in her church in active ministry, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So there was that connection there, and I do feel bad because I'd forgotten about that from my early, like, childhood years. But but up until university, that was not on my radar at all and not a thing at all.
So you're at university, you're studying theology, you're sitting in dark rooms thinking about the things that you don't know.
Understand.
Did you ever do that?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I still do. But there's so much that I don't know that I just allow God to speak into the empty, dark, quiet space of my mind. But yeah, I loved it. I made some real heart friends during my university years. Best friends that are still best friends now. And I just loved it. I loved the variety. Like, I did Buddhism, I did Islam, I mentioned liberation theology, love and death, feminist theology, looking at the Gospel of Matthew in detail. Like, the span of the course was huge, and I loved it all. And I love the independence that going to university brought as well. That was great.
Yeah.
Plugged into the CU, but the CU was very, very conservative, and I quickly developed a name for myself as like this liberal, liberal, feminist, angry kind of little beast who would turn up on the Friday meetings and be like, yeah, but why don't women speak, man? Because at that time,
I think that's a great label to have.
I felt like it was
liberal
necessary.
feminist.
Yeah, I definitely got a name for myself. I was quite vocal in university, and that my Christian side, it felt like justice to be like talking about these things and trying to work out how other people's faith had led them to believe that there was a difference in men and women that meant some were better than others. Or were able to do different tasks. Like, I just had this real, like, hot streak, really, like, fiery streak, even with my colleagues, like, classmates in theology, some of whom are now ordained as well. Like, we used to just debate, and, like, I would merrily stay up all night just talking things through, and kind of developing my voice, really. And I just had a great time at university. And with my feminist side, I was women's officer as well for the university for a year. And I think so when I'm looking back, I'm thinking there was a time when I was in church as an ordained person, and I suddenly realised that I was a leader. And I did a course not long ago, and it asked us to think about when was the first time you realised that, you know, God had maybe shaped you to be a leader. And actually looking back, it's funny, like, even from like being in brownies or like stuff to do with child, and even at university, like going for women's officer, like, I wouldn't have called myself a leader, but looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, there was lots of things. Like, I loved, like, doing things, setting things up. And I had an amazing, to be fair, the strength of my, you know, the greatest joys of my life was the team around me, like my best friends, and the fun things that we got up to. And it was a wonderful 3 years at uni, and couldn't speak more highly of it. That sounds weird, but I just had best time.
So when it came towards the end of university, did you then have an idea of what you wanted to do afterwards?
I was sat at the back of a lecture one day, and I suddenly was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to graduate. What am I going to do? And I was like, what do I want to do? I should have been listening, but really I was just having an existential crisis. I was like, I just don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. I don't want to stop doing this every day. So I thought, I'm going to just continue. I'm going to try and study for my MA and continue doing theology and learning more and just see where it takes me. Now, at that time, I must have had a thought about working for the church. So I remember saying to my vicar, I don't know what capacity, I just don't want to I want to work for the church. Like, I want to have I want to be in a Christian role. I don't know what capacity, but I just want to work for the church. And he was like, oh, okay, I think you might need to see the DDO, which is the Diocesan Director of Ordinands. And that's the kind of person that helps people explore their vocation and formation, which is basically like what's God called you to do and how have you been moulded, or how would you like to be moulded for that? So had a conversation with him in my final year at university just before graduating. So we went to Costa for the first time. We ever met, which was really cool, really weird. I remember being really not scared, but just like nervous in a way, meeting someone that seemed quite senior, that worked for the church. And I remember thinking, this is weird. Didn't know what the right thing to say was, so just said the truth. And that seemed to be a good enough place to start. And then, did my master's at a little college called St. John's College. Now, this was a big change in a way, because although I was continuing in theological education, that college was half for independent students like me and half for people that were training for ordination. So for the first time, I got to live alongside ordinands and see up, and ordinands are people that are training to be ordained, basically, and see up close the kind of people that God calls to be leaders in the church, basically. And that blew my mind.
In a good way or a bad way?
In a really good way. In a way that that was quite shocking. And I was like, oh my goodness, not everybody is a 50-year-old man here.
Yeah.
A 50-year-old white man. Everybody was there. Everybody was there with ability, disability, different stages of life, different ages, different backgrounds, different heritages, everything you could think of. And literally everybody was there, and it was wonderful. And so at that stage, it was great to just continue what I love to do, but also have the excuse to look at the kind of people that God was calling and to live alongside them. That was perhaps the most important thing for me as well.
Yeah. So was that was the nudge that going, maybe if there are these other odd socks here, maybe I might want to join this band and actually.
Yeah, definitely.
And then going back to something you said previously about being a leader and seeing the different ways that you were a leader in different parts of your life. Did you find that when you started to explore getting ordained and becoming a deacon and a priest, did you look back at your life and go, oh, maybe God was kind of working in different parts of my life to get me to this point? Oh,
yeah, 100%. So I think one of the things I do remember and smile about is I had guinea pigs when I was in my middle school, year 5 and year 6. And when they died, I had funerals for them.
Yes,
that was just a necessity, yeah. And it's you sort of look back to those times and you think, oh yeah, I think, yeah, that's weird, isn't it? Children don't usually do funerals. And there's another time I remember driving up to see family at Christmas time, listening to a tape player of this song. It's the Christmas song that's like a spaceman came travelling on a ship from afar.
Yeah.
And he went la 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 la, and it talks about a newborn baby being born, and then it talks about Jesus in a poetic way. I remember leaning out the car, looking out the window, looking at the night sky filled with stars, and being like, "Wow, God is real." So I feel in all of my life, when I look back, I feel like God has almost left little crumbs of, I don't know, the reality of him, or him speaking to me, or him showing me what he was doing. When you look back, you think, oh yeah, that kind of all makes sense. And I think that's I'm glad that we don't see the full picture of what is to come in the future immediately, but there are just little signs and patterns where we go, oh my goodness, God, you're in all of this. Yeah. And you know what's going on.
Yeah. So you'd done your degree, you were doing your master's. Did you immediately go forward for ordination training, or what happened after that?
No. So at this stage, I was still quite young. So I was about 23. And what we decided to do is, before making a a decision about vocation. I was going to do an internship. So this is with the SEAMS Church of England. It's like Church of England Ministry Experience Scheme. So I was an intern back in my home diocese, which is Peterborough. I went to Kettering for a year and basically spent the year as an intern, which was following the ups and downs, days and nights of what the vicar there did, and having a go at setting up my own thing. I mean, it was a great year because I got to do things that were like going to PCC for the first time and learning about all that, being involved in the Sunday services. That was the first time I went to do a funeral visit, for example. Yeah. Just a couple, not very many. But it was the first time I preached, although like it was my very last Sunday. It was I did my first kind of preach. But also like getting involved with, you know, the toddler group, children and youth stuff. I set up an adults group about faith. Also there was some kind of development formational stuff as part of the scheme as well. So I spent a year doing that. And again, just loved it and was like, yes, I really think God's calling me to this. I really wanted to do it. I hungered for it. And I was like, the kind of phrase I keep coming back to with my formation and vocation journey was there's nothing else I want to do. And it's not like, there's something else I'd rather do. It's like, there is literally nothing else in the world I'd rather do than this. And just thought, well, I'll just be honest. So at BAP, which is the Bishop's Advisory Panel, it's got a different name now. It's now Stage 1 and Stage 2, like conversations and meetings and things, which is a new thing in the last year or so. But to become an ordinand in this year, so going back to 2014, 13, 14, oh no, I think it was 14. It was a kind of weekend away with interviews where you had to give a short talk. They kind of monitored your interaction with other people. You had to have lots of different conversations with people about faith, how accurate, how sound of mind you were. I think that was one of them as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Or like your aptitude for kind of like, I don't know, thinking through stuff. And I remember being there as well with, again, a whole load of different people. And I just loved I just saw the diversity of who God was calling to maybe consider helping to lead and shape the church. It was really exciting. Yeah. But yeah, so at the end of my internship year, then I went to BAP and I passed BAP and was recommended for ordination training, which just felt like, I remember the phone call the bishop calls the potential candidates and shared that news with me. And I just remember being overjoyed by that and knowing that I knew where I was going to go to train as well was obviously wonderful. But wonderful call.
So do you already explored where you might go to theological college to train to be a vicar by that point?
Yeah, that's right. So I think the BAP was in May time, but before that, our DDO said, go and have a look around different colleges, because if you do get accepted, you kind of want to know where you are going, where you'd go to be, if that makes sense. So I had a look around, and it's funny, I mentioned earlier about wanting to go to Durham, but not quite. I wouldn't have got in, and I didn't get in. But eventually ended up there.
Snuck in, didn't you?
I know, snuck in the back door. Yeah, so ended up going to Cranmer Hall, which is part of St John's College. And again, it's the same with when I went to visit Nottingham Uni. I walked in the door and I was like, this is where I felt at home. I hadn't even been accepted for training yet. And I was like, I just felt such a pull. And I feel like God, I know we can't always just like depend on our feelings alone for things, but that instinct, that intuition, that call, that pull felt so strong that I was like, this is where I want to be.
This is the place.
And just so pleased and just so lucky in a way that, that all worked out and was able to start there in, September time.
Yeah, and met some pretty cool people there, I hear. Oh,
some besties for life. And again, so that was such an intense couple of years. So being under 32, ideally you're supposed to do 3 years. Because I'd done theology already, I did 2 years. So there's a lot to fit into 2 years to train you up, really. But what an amazing time. People say that journey of going through training, you're broken apart so that God can put you back together. And I definitely felt that. But I loved it. I loved the group that I was with, like my year group, obviously some amazing friends. I loved the teaching. I loved the city of Durham itself. I went to the cathedral when I wasn't on placement, and I loved that. The tutors were amazing. Like, again, I just feel so blessed. I had such a wonderful time. Really hard work at times, don't get me wrong. But just felt just felt I was definitely in the right place at the right time. And so grateful to be there.
And then when it comes to the end of kind of theological training, you work out where your curacy is and where you're going to kind of do the next step of learning how to be a vicar. And how did that process go for you?
It's a good question. I don't remember too much of it, if I'm honest, but I do remember thinking, well, I've come from Peterborough Diocese. I don't have a reason not to go back there. Yeah. So again, was just allowed my DDO to kind of think and pray through who would be a good place, where would be a good place to go to. And I remember, it's a shame really. I got, I think it was, is it called hand, foot and mouth disease? I was really
you
ill.
did, didn't you?
Got blisters. Oh my gosh, I was really poorly, when my training incumbent came up to Durham to kind of see me in situ.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, it was, it was a bad time. Dear, oh dear. So I remember that meeting wasn't so great, but I just remember thinking, this all looks good. Before that happened, I went to go and visit her. It was really cool to be with a female TI, training incumbent for my curacy, just to give a kind of closer look into, I don't know, ministry as a woman. And, I mean, I remember saying to my DDO, it didn't matter to me too much at that point. My fiery edge of feminism and justice had sort of simmered a little bit. And actually, I'd worked through a lot of the stuff about being a young and being female, which were two quite big areas really to kind of look into and wrestle with and see what the challenges were and other people's expectations and judgments. Didn't come up against too many in my time actually, but it was just really cool to be placed with her. And I was about 30 minutes as well away from my hometown, which was really nice. So again, it just felt like homecoming, because I was ordained in 2016, so 26, although I think I was 25 at the time when I was ordained. So again, you're in that age and stage of life where I was single at the time, so wanted to be close to people that I knew and loved. And went around the church, got to meet her. Like I said, she came up to Durham, which wasn't such a successful visit, but was excited about, really diving headfirst into ministry.
Oh, and we're going to kind of stop there, because kind of from curacy onwards is the stuff that we talk about more in the pod, and kind of wanted to lead up to that point. But I'm going to ask you a final question of, you've talked a lot about your passion for feminism, and I think that's one of the great things about you is how fiery you are, and I wouldn't say that's a bad thing at all. And you're passionate for that. And so my kind of question is, maybe I'm leading you with the feminism stuff, but actually in your ministry, what do you think are the key parts of your ministry that the real focuses for you? So is it kind of promoting and looking at faith through these eyes of a young woman who is a feminist? What are the kind of key parts of ministry for you?
I do think this is a thing that changes in different seasons of my life, and I've loved being able to look at different things in turn. It's like, I don't know, a classic image of a diamond, isn't it, in different faces for different seasons. I think in ministry, in this season, the angle or the face that shines most often and most brightly isn't necessarily matters of kind of justice when it comes to equality, feminism. It's not even really been about age or stage of life. I think the thing that's kind of, I guess, ministry at this point in time is, I don't know, being alongside people and over and over and over again reminding them that they are beloved and they're precious to God. It's coming home to the heart of theology, really. It's learning to fall in love with your Bible. It's learning that prayer it really works and God is really there. And I guess things will change in different seasons. But of course, I still feel really passionately about understanding the church well, and I'm really excited. I mean, looking into vocation and formation is one of my favourite things, and I'm going to start doing some work in the year to come with being an ADDO, which is an assistant DDO, which helps people to kind of work out where they are on their journey. Because really what I have seen and what I want to continue to see in the church as well in the future is an even greater diversity of people.
Yeah.
Being enabled to explore their calling and being welcome to be leaders or assistant leaders or, you know, whatever it might be, lay leaders, ordained leaders. That's really my heart. That's like where I am at the moment, reminding people of how precious they are, how much God loves them, teaching people and talking about like the basics of Christianity as well, which can easily slip off. And then looking at vocation and formation and being like, guys, like, what's God calling you to? Let's jump into this and find out.
Thanks, Jenny. It's so lovely to hear your story and the bits that are very familiar and the bits like, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that, or I had never heard that before. So we hope that that was useful to you guys as well as listeners, and not just me and Jenny chatting to each other.
Yeah, thanks for listening, guys. If you're still here, like, bless you for listening. Like, honestly. And I think we would both say, wouldn't we? Like, we're all over emails, Instagram, stuff like that. If you ever want to chat or if there's something you want to talk about, then we're here. And yeah, we're listening to you as well.
Yeah. And when this goes out, it is very soon the anniversary of 1 year of us doing this podcast, which is
so
bonkers.
true.
So we would love to hear what are some of your ideas for a first year anniversary episode. What should we talk about? What should we do? Is there a particular thing we should watch, or yeah, what would you like us to do? So please do message us and let us know. If you want to message us on social media, it is at Vicars Watch for most things, or Vicars Watch Dibley. For email, vicarswatchdibley@gmail.com. We love hearing your emails and try our best to reply to them. Let us know what you think you should do, and yeah, it'd be really lovely to hear from you all. I think that's all we need to say.
Yeah, I think
Cate, get better soon.
We love you.
We love you and we miss you. You're the organised one with this, and it's just a shambles when we do it. So, yes, hopefully by the time you get to the next episode, we'll have the lovely Cate beside us again, giving us all our wisdom.
Indeed, indeed.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Vicars Watch Dibley. Thank you to Toby for editing our ramblings.
Any views expressed in this podcast are our own and don't necessarily represent those of the Church of England or any other organisations with which we are affiliated.
And as always, bless you for listening.
Jenny, as it's been all about you, what's your favourite joke?
I do have a favourite joke, but I can't remember if I've said it before. B, I'm not sure if it's too rude for the podcast. Shall I try anyway?
Try anyway.
Okay. People might not remember if I have said it before. What kind of bees make milk?
I don't know, Jenny. What kind of bees
You
make...
do know.
I do know.
You say what kind of bees make milk. I'm not going to.
Boobies!
Yay!
That's fine.